If it was just a 14-day trip with her ex-husband, why did she go silent when I asked, "Do you even know what illness he has?" My name is Jason Fairburn, and I should have known something was wrong when my wife started sleeping with her phone under her pillow, not beside it, not on the nightstand where it had lived for the past 12 years of our marriage, under her actual pillow, like some teenager hiding contraband from her parents. When I asked Laura about it one morning over coffee, she laughed it off with that musical giggle that used to make my heart skip, but now just made my stomach clench. "Oh, you know how it is," she said, not looking up from her Greek yogurt. The notifications were keeping me awake. I figured if I muffled them, but I'd been sleeping next to her for over a decade. I knew the difference between her real laugh and her performance laugh. This was definitely a performance. I'm an IT consultant, which means I spend my days solving problems that other people create through carelessness or stupidity. It's made me pretty good at spotting patterns, inconsistencies, and outright lies. The phone thing was just the beginning. There were other signs, small at first. Laura started working late more often, claiming her PR firm had landed some big client that demanded evening calls. She'd disappear into her home office after dinner, emerging hours later with that same fake smile and a kiss on my cheek that felt more like a consolation prize than affection. "How's the big project going?" I'd ask. "Oh, you know how it is with these corporate types. Everything's urgent until it's not." Another performance laugh, another non-answer. Our daughters, Beth and Janie, 11 and 8 respectively, started asking why Mommy was always on her computer. Kids notice everything, even when we think they're absorbed in their tablets or homework. Beth, my little detective, cornered me in the kitchen one evening while Laura was locked away in her office again. "Dad, is Mom mad at us?" The question hit me like a punch to the gut. "Why would you think that, sweetheart?" "She used to help with my math homework. Now she just says she's too busy." Beth's brown eyes, so much like mine, were filled with confusion. "And she keeps her phone with her even in the bathroom." Even in the bathroom. Jesus. That night, I lay awake listening to Laura's breathing, watching the blue glow from her phone screen illuminate her face as she typed message after message under the covers. When she finally set it down and rolled over, I waited 20 minutes before carefully reaching for it. Password protected. Of course. I tried her birthday, our anniversary, the kids' birthdays. Nothing. Then, on a hunch born of growing suspicion, I tried a date from her past. The day she'd married her ex-husband, Scott Williams, 15 years ago. The phone unlocked. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through her messages. Most were innocent enough. Work stuff, mom group chats, conversations with her sister. But there was one thread that made my blood run cold. A conversation with someone listed simply as S that went back months. The most recent messages were from just an hour ago. S, can't wait to see you tomorrow. It's been too long. Laura, I know, I've been thinking about this for weeks. S, just like old times, better even. Laura, I should go. He's getting suspicious. S, 2 weeks in paradise, just you and me? Laura, I love you too. I set the phone down carefully, my hands trembling with a rage I hadn't felt since I was a teenager. 2 weeks in paradise, just you and me. I love you too. 15 years of marriage. 2 beautiful daughters. A home we'd built together, literally. I'd spent weekends renovating every room in this house while she picked out paint colors and argued with contractors. And she was throwing it all away for her ex-husband. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I lay there planning, thinking, trying to figure out my next move. By morning, I had decided to wait and see what story she'd tell me. I wanted to hear the lies from her own mouth. Laura came down to breakfast looking radiant in a way she hadn't in months. She was practically glowing as she poured her coffee and started making the girls' lunch. "So," she said casually, like she was mentioning a grocery run, "I'm going to take a little trip with the girls from work. You know, Sarah and Michelle. We've been talking about doing a spa weekend for ages, and we finally decided to just do it." "A spa weekend?" I kept my voice neutral, curious. "Well, maybe a little longer than a weekend. 2 weeks, actually. We found this amazing deal on a wellness retreat in Costa Rica, all-inclusive, yoga classes, meditation, the works." She was talking fast, the way she did when she was nervous or lying, usually both. 2 weeks seems like a long time for a work trip. It's not exactly a work trip, more like a mental health break. You know how stressed I've been lately. She finally looked at me, those green eyes that had once made me weak in the knees, now just making me sick. "You don't mind, do you? You're so good with the girls, and it would be nice to just disconnect for a while." Disconnect. Right. "When were you thinking of leaving?" Tomorrow, actually. I know it's short notice, but the deal expires, and we had to book fast. She was already moving around the kitchen, avoiding eye contact, busying herself with unnecessary tasks. I nodded slowly. Tomorrow? Wow, that is short notice. You're okay with it, right? I mean, I know it's a lot to ask. Of course, I said, forcing a smile. You deserve a break. You've been working so hard lately. The relief on her face was almost comical. She actually bounced on her toes a little, like a kid who'd just been told she could stay up past bedtime. Oh, thank you. I was worried you'd be upset. I'll pack tonight, and I'll make sure everything is organized for you and the girls. Emergency contacts, schedules, everything. Don't worry about it. We'll be fine. And we would be. Better than fine, actually. Laura left the next morning with a single carry-on suitcase and a kiss on my cheek that felt like betrayal itself. 2 weeks in Costa Rica with a carry-on. Even the girls noticed. That's not very much stuff for 2 weeks, Mom, Beth observed, ever the practical one. Oh, you know how it is, sweetheart. We're going to buy clothes there, part of the experience. Laura's laugh was getting more brittle by the minute. Plus, they have laundry service. I watched from the kitchen window as her Uber pulled away, noting the license plate number out of habit. Old habits from my IT security days. Always document everything. I had a feeling I was going to need that mindset in the coming weeks. The first few days were actually pleasant. Without Laura's constant tension filling the house, the girls and I fell into an easy routine. I worked from home, helped with homework, cooked dinner. We had movie nights and built a blanket fort in the living room. For the first time in months, our house felt like a home again, but I wasn't idle. During the girls' school hours, I was busy. First, I called our bank and added alerts to all our accounts. Any transaction over $100 would ping my phone immediately. I also quietly moved half our savings into a separate account, not to hide it, but to protect it. If Laura was planning to run off with Scott, I needed to make sure my daughter's college fund stayed intact. Next, I did what any good IT consultant would do. I gathered intelligence. Scott Williams wasn't hard to find. Social media made stalking remarkably easy, and Scott wasn't particularly careful about his privacy settings. Within an hour, I had his address, his employer, his girlfriend's name — poor Marie had no idea what was coming — and most importantly, his recent posts. That's where things got interesting. 3 weeks ago, Scott had posted about feeling under the weather and joking about his doctor visits. 2 weeks ago, there was a photo of him at what looked like a medical clinic with the caption, "Getting the all clear, hopefully." And just 5 days ago, a post that made my blood run cold. Sometimes life throws you curveballs, dealing with some health stuff but staying positive. Health stuff. What kind of health stuff required an all clear from a doctor? I spent the next few hours diving deeper, cross-referencing his posts with medical information, looking for clues. Scott worked in construction, which meant potential exposure to all kinds of nasty things. He'd also posted photos from a trip to Southeast Asia 6 months ago, another red flag for exotic infections. By the end of the week, I had a pretty clear picture of Scott Williams. Recently divorced, recently sick with something that required medical clearance, and currently playing house with my wife in what I was now certain wasn't Costa Rica. The confirmation came from an unexpected source. I was making dinner for the girls when my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. The text was short and to the point. "Is this Jason Fairburn, Laura's husband? We need to talk. This is Marie Chen, Scott's girlfriend." My heart started racing. I stepped out onto the back porch before calling the number. "Hello?" The voice was young, nervous. "This is Jason. You said you needed to talk?" God, I can't believe I'm doing this. She sounded like she was crying. "I found your number in Scott's phone. Look, I don't know how to say this, but I think our partners are together right now." "What do you mean?" "Scott told me he was going on a business trip to Florida, some construction consulting job. But I found emails on his computer. He forgot to log out of his Gmail. He's been talking to your wife for months, and they're not in Florida or Costa Rica or wherever they told us they were going." My grip tightened on the phone. "Where are they?" "Some resort in Mexico, Cabo, I think. They've been planning this for weeks." Her voice cracked. "There's something else, something you need to know about Scott." "I'm listening." "He's been sick, really sick. He caught some kind of infection a few months ago, something he picked up on a job site. The doctor said it was bacterial, highly contagious through close contact. He was on antibiotics for weeks, and they told him to avoid intimate contact until he got the all clear." My stomach dropped. Did he get the all clear? That's just it. I don't think so. He's been dodging his follow-up appointments, saying he feels fine. But the doctors were really serious about it. They said it could cause serious complications if it spread, especially to women. The phone felt slippery in my sweaty palm. What kind of complications? Fertility issues. Chronic pain. I'm getting tested next week, but I'm scared. She was definitely crying now. I thought you should know. If your wife comes back... Thank you, I managed. Thank you for telling me. After I hung up, I stood on the porch for a long time, watching the sunset and thinking. Laura wasn't just cheating on me. She was risking both our health, potentially exposing me to whatever Scott had picked up, and she had no idea I knew. That night, after the girls were asleep, I made 2 appointments, one with my doctor for a full STD panel and bacterial infection screening, and one with the best divorce attorney in town. If Laura wanted to play games, I was going to make sure I won. Laura came home on a Thursday afternoon, glowing with what I now knew was more than just a spa retreat tan. She looked radiant, relaxed, and completely oblivious to the fact that her world was about to collapse. "Honey, I'm home," she called out, dropping her carry-on by the front door. The same carry-on she'd supposedly lived out of for 2 weeks in Costa Rica. It looked suspiciously light for someone who'd been shopping for the experience. I was waiting in the kitchen, sitting at our breakfast table with a manila envelope in front of me and a cup of coffee growing cold in my hands. I'd sent the girls to my mother's house for the afternoon. They didn't need to see what was about to happen. "There you are," Laura breezed in, all smiles and fake energy. She looked amazing, I had to admit. Her hair was lighter, her skin golden, her eyes bright. She looked like a woman who'd spent 2 weeks being thoroughly satisfied by someone who wasn't her husband. She leaned down to kiss me, and I turned my head so her lips caught my cheek instead of my mouth. "Miss me?" she asked, seemingly oblivious to the rejection. "Did you have a good time in Costa Rica?" I asked, my voice carefully neutral. "Oh, it was incredible. So relaxing. The yoga classes were amazing, and the food..." She was moving around the kitchen as she talked, unpacking a few token souvenirs from her purse. A keychain, some coffee beans, a small carved wooden bird, props for her performance. "That's nice. How were Sarah and Michelle?" Laura paused for just a fraction of a second. If I hadn't been watching for it, I would have missed it entirely. "They were great. Sarah got a little too much sun the first day, but other than that..." She trailed off, finally noticing the envelope on the table. "What's that?" "Sit down, Laura." Something in my tone made her freeze. The fake smile slipped a little, and for the first time since she'd walked in, she really looked at me. Saw the tension in my shoulders, the careful way I was holding myself. "Jason, is everything okay? Did something happen with the girls?" "The girls are fine. They're at my mother's house. Sit down." She sat, her movements suddenly careful and controlled. The woman who'd bounced into the kitchen 5 minutes ago was gone, replaced by someone who looked like she was preparing for bad news. "I know you weren't in Costa Rica," I said simply. The color drained from her face so fast I thought she might faint. "I know you were in Cabo with Scott Williams. I know you've been talking to him for months. I know this whole trip was planned weeks in advance, and I know you lied to me, to our daughters, and to everyone else about where you were going and who you were with." Laura's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. No sound came out. "But here's the thing that really bothers me," I continued, sliding the envelope across the table toward her. "Scott's been sick, really sick, with something contagious that spreads through intimate contact. His girlfriend told me all about it when she called to warn me that our spouses were screwing each other in Mexico." Laura found her voice. "Jason, I can explain." "Can you? Can you explain why you risked my health, your health, potentially our daughter's health, for a 2-week fuckfest with your ex-husband?" She flinched at the profanity. I never swore at her, never raised my voice. Even when we fought, I kept things civil. Not today. "It's not what you think," she said weakly. "Really? What is it then? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've been planning to cheat on me for months. You lied about where you were going, you spent our money on a romantic getaway with another man, and you potentially exposed both of us to a serious infection. So please, enlighten me. What am I missing?" Tears started streaming down her face, but I felt nothing. No sympathy, no urge to comfort her, nothing but cold, calculated anger. "I never meant for it to happen," she whispered. "But it did happen. Multiple times, I'm guessing, given that you spent 2 weeks together." She nodded miserably. "Are you in love with him?" Another nod. "How long?" "How long what?" "How long have you been in love with him? How long have you been planning to leave me?" "I'm not leaving you." The words came out in a rush, desperate and panicked. "I never said I was leaving you," I laughed, and the sound was harsh even to my own ears. "No, you just thought you'd keep us both. Scott for the excitement, me for the stability and the paycheck." Is that about right? It's not like that. Then what is it like, Laura? Because I'm having trouble seeing how this works out in any way that doesn't end with you choosing him or choosing me. She was sobbing now, mascara running down her cheeks in black streaks. I don't know. I don't know what I want. Well, that's convenient, because I know what I want. I tapped the envelope. Those are the results of my medical tests. Clean, thankfully, though I'll need to be retested in a few months to be sure. Your turn. She stared at the envelope like it might bite her. I've made you an appointment with Dr. Martinez for tomorrow morning. Full panel, bacterial cultures, the works. You're going to get tested, and you're going to find out whether your ex-boyfriend's mystery illness is now your mystery illness. Jason, please. I'm not finished. My voice was getting colder, more controlled. I've also moved half our savings into a protected account for the girl's education. I've documented your absence, your lies, and your infidelity. I've spoken to a lawyer. Her face went white. You're divorcing me? I'm preparing to divorce you. Whether I actually file depends entirely on what you do next. What do you mean? I leaned forward, meeting her eyes directly for the first time since she'd sat down. You're going to choose, Laura, right now, today. You're going to choose Scott or you're going to choose your family, but you don't get both. That's not fair. Fair? I stood up, my chair scraping against the kitchen floor. You want to talk about fair? Is it fair that I spent 2 weeks taking care of our daughters alone while you were fucking your ex-husband in Mexico? Is it fair that you risked my health without my knowledge or consent? Is it fair that you've been lying to me for months while I trusted you completely? She was shaking now, tears and snot running down her face. I made a mistake. No, Laura. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk at the store. A mistake is bouncing a check or missing a parent-teacher conference. This was a choice. A series of choices, hundreds of them, made over months of planning and lying and betraying everything we built together. I walked to the kitchen counter and picked up a small overnight bag I'd packed earlier. What's that? Your things, enough for a few days. I set it on the table next to the envelope. You're going to leave now. You're going to figure out what you want, Scott or your family. You're going to get tested and find out whether you brought home any souvenirs from your trip. And then you're going to call me and tell me what you've decided. Where am I supposed to go? I don't care. Scott's place, your sister's house, a hotel, not my problem. She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. You're kicking me out? This is my house too. This is the house where our daughters live. The daughters you abandoned for 2 weeks to go screw your ex-husband. The daughters who asked me if you were mad at them because you stopped helping with homework and started hiding in your office every night texting him. That hit home. She actually recoiled like I'd slapped her. You want to act single? You can live single. At least until you decide what you actually want. I picked up her bag and walked toward the front door. After a moment, she followed, still crying. Jason, please. Can't we talk about this? Can't we try to work it out? I opened the front door and set her bag on the porch. Get tested. Make your choice. Call me when you've done both. What about the girls? What are you going to tell them? The truth. That mommy needs some time to figure out what she wants, and that it's not their fault. She started to say something else, but I closed the door before she could get the words out. I turned the deadbolt and walked back to the kitchen, leaving her standing on our front porch with her overnight bag and the sound of her sobs filtering through the walls. 20 minutes later, I heard a car pull up. Through the kitchen window, I watched Scott Williams get out of a red pickup truck and help Laura load her bag. She was still crying as she got into the passenger seat. I poured myself a fresh cup of coffee and called my mother to let her know she could bring the girls home. The next few days were a special kind of hell. Laura called 17 times the first day, 32 times the second day, and then stopped calling altogether. I didn't answer any of them. The girls took it about as well as could be expected, which is to say they were confused, hurt, and angry in the way that only children can be when their world suddenly stops making sense. Why can't Mommy come home? Janie asked for the 100th time, curled up next to me on the couch while we watched a Disney movie neither of us was really paying attention to. Because Mommy made some choices that hurt our family, and now she needs to decide what's more important to her, I said, trying to keep my voice gentle. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, and sometimes those mistakes have consequences. Did she stop loving us? The question hit me like a physical blow. No, sweetheart. Mommy loves you very much. This isn't about you and Beth at all. This is about choices Mommy made that have nothing to do with being your mom. But even as I said it, I wondered if it was true. How do you abandon your children for 2 weeks to run off with your ex-husband if you're not, on some level, putting your own desires ahead of their needs? Beth, my little detective, was handling it differently. She'd gotten quiet and watchful, studying my face whenever she thought I wasn't looking, trying to piece together the parts of the story I wasn't telling her. "Dad," she said one evening while we were doing dishes together, "is Mom ever coming back?"
Be right back.
I stopped scrubbing the pan I was holding and really looked at her. 11 years old, brown hair in braids, wearing a t-shirt with a unicorn on it, but her eyes were older than they should have been. "I don't know, honey. I hope so, but that's up to her." "Are you going to get divorced?" Jesus. When I was 11, I thought divorce was something that happened to other people's parents. Now my daughter was asking about it like she was asking about the weather. "Maybe. I hope not, but maybe." She nodded like this was the answer she'd expected. "Jenny Morrison's parents got divorced last year. She said it's not that bad once you get used to it." "How do you feel about that possibility?" Beth was quiet for a long moment, carefully drying a plate with more attention than the task required. "I think I'd rather have one parent who wants to be here than two parents where one of them is always thinking about being somewhere else. Smart kid. Too smart, maybe." On Friday, exactly a week after Laura had left, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Jason?" The voice was familiar but strained. "It's Laura. Did you get tested?" "Yes." "And?" A long pause. "I need antibiotics. Dr. Martinez said it's treatable, but I need to avoid contact for at least 2 weeks while the medication works." I felt a grim satisfaction that I immediately felt guilty about. "So Scott gave you his mystery infection." "It looks that way." "What is it?" "Chlamydia. And something else, some kind of bacterial thing the doctor said he probably picked up from contaminated water or food. She said it's not dangerous if treated properly, but what?" But she asked how many people I might have exposed. Laura's voice was barely a whisper. "I had to tell her about you." "I already got tested. I'm clean." "Thank God." She sounded genuinely relieved, which surprised me. "Jason, I'm so sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen." "Have you made your choice?" Another long pause. "I want to come home." "That's not what I asked. I asked if you'd made your choice, Scott or your family." "I choose my family. I choose you and the girls." "What about Scott?" "I told him it was over. I told him I was trying to save my marriage." "How did he take that?" "Not well." Her voice got even quieter. "He said some things, mean things, about you, about our marriage, about how I was making a mistake." "And what did you say?" "I said that maybe I was making a mistake, but it was my mistake to make." I found myself smiling despite everything. That sounded like the Laura I'd married, the one who didn't back down from a fight when she believed she was right. "Where are you staying?" "My sister's place. She's been supportive isn't the right word. She's been honest. Painfully honest." I could imagine. Laura's sister Amy had never been one to sugarcoat things, especially when it came to family drama. "What did she say?" "That I was an idiot, that I had a good husband and beautiful children, and I was throwing it all away for what? A few weeks of feeling young again?" Laura's voice cracked. "She said if I lost you, I'd regret it for the rest of my life." "Do you think she's right?" "Yes. God, yes. Jason, I know I screwed up. I know I hurt you and the girls, and I know I don't deserve forgiveness. But I love you. I love our family. I want to come home and try to fix this." I leaned back in my kitchen chair, looking around at the house we'd built together. The girls' artwork on the refrigerator, the family photos on the walls, the coffee mug she'd bought me for Father's Day 3 years ago sitting in the sink. "It's not going to be easy," I said finally. "I know. I don't trust you. I don't know when I'll trust you again, or if I ever will completely." "I know." The girls are hurt. They're confused and scared, and they don't understand why their mother left them. "I know." She was crying again, but quietly this time. "And I'm angry. Really, really angry. I'm angry about the lying, about the cheating, about you risking my health, about you abandoning our children. I'm angry about having to explain to my daughters why their mother wasn't here to help with homework, or kiss them goodnight, or just be present in their lives. I know. I'm angry at myself, too." "So if you come back, it's going to be different. We're going to counseling. You're changing jobs. I don't want you working with people who helped you plan this betrayal. You're giving me complete access to your phone, your email, your social media, everything, and we're telling the girls the truth in age-appropriate terms. No more lies." "Okay. And Scott Williams is completely out of your life, forever. If he contacts you, you tell me immediately. If you run into him somewhere, you leave. If he shows up at our house, I'm calling the police. He won't. I made it very clear that we're done." "Good. Because, Laura, I need you to understand something. This is your one chance. Your only chance. If you cheat again, if you lie again, if you put our family at risk again, I will divorce you and I will fight for full custody of the girls, and I will win. I understand. Do you? Do you really? Because I'm not the same person I was 2 weeks ago. I'm not going to just trust and hope and assume the best anymore. I'm going to verify everything. I'm going to pay attention to everything, and if I see even a hint that you're not completely committed to rebuilding our marriage, I'm done. I understand, she repeated, more firmly this time. I want to come home, Jason. I want to fix this. I want to be the wife and mother you and the girls deserve. I closed my eyes and tried to imagine it. Laura coming home, us trying to rebuild what she'd broken, the girls having their mother back. It felt impossible and necessary at the same time. Come home tomorrow, I said finally. We'll start there and see what happens. Laura came home on a Saturday morning, carrying the same overnight bag I'd packed for her and looking like she hadn't slept in days. The girls were at my mother's house again. I'd decided we needed time to talk before involving them in whatever came next. She stood in our entryway like a guest in her own home, uncertain and fragile in a way I'd never seen before. The confident, radiant woman who'd returned from Mexico was gone, replaced by someone who looked genuinely broken. Thank you, she said quietly, for letting me come back. Don't thank me yet. We have a lot of work to do. I'd spent the week thinking about what I needed from her, what conditions would make it possible for me to even consider trusting her again. The list was long and non-negotiable. We sat at the kitchen table, the same place where I'd confronted her a week ago, and I laid out my terms. Complete transparency with all communication, couples counseling starting immediately, a new job, away from the colleagues who'd helped her cover her tracks, individual therapy to figure out why she'd been willing to risk everything for a few weeks with her ex-husband. She agreed to everything without argument, which was either a very good sign or a very bad one. There's something else, she said when I'd finished. Something I need to tell you about Scott. My stomach tightened. What about him? He didn't take it well when I told him we were over. He's been calling, texting, showing up at Amy's house. Yesterday he came to her office. What did he want? He said I was making a mistake, that you'd never forgive me, never trust me again, that I was just postponing the inevitable. She looked down at her hands. He said he'd wait for me. And what did you tell him? I told him to leave me alone, that I'd made my choice and it wasn't him. She met my eyes. I told him that if he contacted me again, I'd call the police. Good. Did you mean it? Yes, absolutely. Her voice was stronger now, more certain. Jason, I know how this looks. I know it seems like I'm only choosing you because Scott turned out to be a disappointment, but that's not true. Then what is true? She was quiet for a long moment, thinking. The truth is that I got caught up in feeling like someone I used to be. Someone younger, more exciting, more, free, I guess. Scott represented this life I could have had, this version of myself that didn't have responsibilities or routines or a husband and children. Yes, and for a while that felt appealing. The idea of just being Laura, not Laura the wife or Laura the mother, just me. I understood that more than I wanted to admit. There were plenty of times I'd wondered what my life would have looked like if I'd made different choices, taken different risks. But being in Mexico with him, she continued, it wasn't what I thought it would be. He's not the person I remembered, and I'm not the person I was when we were married. We don't fit anymore. Maybe we never really did. So you came back to me by default? No. She reached across the table and touched my hand. I didn't pull away, but I didn't respond either. I came back because this is where I belong, because you're my partner and the girls are my babies and this house is my home, because what we built together is real in a way that Fantasy Vacation never was. It's going to take time, Laura, a lot of time, and there are going to be days when I look at you and remember what you did and feel angry all over again. I know. And there are going to be days when you look at me and feel trapped or bored or whatever it was that made you think cheating was a good idea in the first place. Maybe, but if that happens, I'll talk to you about it instead of running away. We talked for hours that day, going over everything that had led up to her affair, everything that had happened during those 2 weeks, everything we'd need to do to move forward. It was exhausting and painful and necessary. When we finally brought the girls home that evening, their reactions were exactly what I'd expected. Janie threw herself into Laura's arms like she'd been drowning, and Laura was a life raft. Beth hung back, watching, evaluating, deciding whether it was safe to hope again. Are you staying this time? Beth asked finally. Laura knelt down so they were at eye level. I'm going to try very hard to stay, sweetheart. Daddy and I have some things to work out, but I want to be here with you and Janie." "What things?" I stepped in. "Adult things, marriage things, but nothing that's your fault or your responsibility to fix." Beth nodded solemnly. "Okay, but if you leave again, I'm going to be really mad." "If I leave again, you have every right to be mad," Laura said. "I hope I don't give you a reason to be." That night, Laura slept in the guest room. We hadn't discussed it, but we both understood that sharing a bed was off the table for now, maybe for a long time. I lay awake listening to the sounds of my family sleeping under the same roof again, trying to decide if it felt like coming home or like harboring a stranger. 3 months later, we were still trying to figure out what our new normal looked like. Laura had found a new job at a smaller PR firm across town. We were going to couples counseling twice a week and individual therapy once a week. She'd given me access to all her accounts and devices, and I checked them regularly, hating myself for the paranoia but unable to stop. The girls had adjusted better than I'd expected. Kids are remarkably resilient when the adults in their lives are honest with them and consistent in their actions. Laura was trying hard to rebuild their trust, showing up for homework help and bedtime stories and Saturday morning pancakes with a dedication that felt both genuine and slightly desperate. We hadn't been intimate since before her trip to Mexico. We were sleeping in the same bed again, but there was an invisible wall between us that neither of us seemed ready to cross. Our counselor said it was normal, that physical intimacy would return when emotional trust was rebuilt. I hoped she was right, because the distance was starting to feel permanent. On a Tuesday evening in late fall, that fragile progress was put to the test. I was in my home office working on a project deadline when Laura knocked on the door. "Jason, can you come downstairs? There's someone here to see you." Something in her voice made me look up from my computer. She looked pale and shaken, like she'd seen a ghost. "Who is it?" "Scott." My blood went cold. "What does he want?" "I don't know. He just showed up at the door and asked to talk to you. I told him to leave, but he said he wasn't going anywhere until he talked to you." I saved my work and followed her downstairs. Through the front window, I could see Scott Williams standing on our porch, hands in his pockets, looking like he had all the time in the world. He looked different than he had in his social media photos. Thinner, older, with the kind of desperate edge that comes from losing everything and having nothing left to lose. I opened the door but didn't invite him in. "Scott." "Jason, thanks for seeing me." "I didn't say I was seeing you. I said I was answering my door. What do you want?" He glanced past me toward Laura, who was standing in the hallway with her arms crossed, looking like she wanted to disappear. "I wanted to talk to you about Laura." "There's nothing to talk about." "I think there is." He stepped closer, and I caught a whiff of alcohol on his breath. Not falling down drunk, but definitely not sober. "See, the thing is, she's not happy. She's pretending to be happy, playing house with you and the kids. But I know her. I know when she's pretending." "You don't know anything." "I know she calls me." My heart stopped. I turned to look at Laura, who had gone white as a sheet. "That's not true," she said quickly. "Jason, that's not true." Scott smiled, and it was an ugly expression. "Really? What about last week? Tuesday night, around 9 o'clock? Laura's face crumpled. It wasn't what you think." "What was it then?" I asked, my voice deadly quiet. "He called me. I didn't call him. And I told him to stop calling, to leave us alone." "But you talked to him." "For maybe 2 minutes, just long enough to tell him to stop." I looked back at Scott, who was still smiling that ugly smile. "Is that what happened?" "She called me, actually. Said she was having second thoughts. Said living with you was like being in prison, all rules and suspicion and no trust." "That's a lie." Laura stepped forward, her voice rising. "I never said that." "Didn't you? Didn't you tell me that he checks your phone every day? That he follows up on every conversation, every meeting, every minute you're not accounted for?" I felt something cold and hard settle in my chest, because he wasn't wrong. I did check her phone. I did ask questions about where she'd been and who she'd talked to. I did keep track of her schedule in a way that felt more like surveillance than marriage. "She also mentioned that you haven't touched her in 3 months, Scott continued, his voice getting louder, more confident. "That you sleep in the same bed, but you might as well be strangers. That's not a marriage, Jason. That's a prison sentence. Get off my property." My voice was shaking with rage. "I'm just saying, maybe it's time to stop pretending this is working. Maybe it's time to admit that some things can't be fixed. Get off my property before I call the police." Scott held up his hands in mock surrender. "Fine, I'm going. But Laura, when you get tired of living like a prisoner, you know where to find me." He turned and walked back to his truck, leaving Laura and me standing in the doorway like survivors of some natural disaster. I closed the door and turned to face my wife. Is it true? Which part? Any of it. All of it. Did you call him? No. He called me. I swear to God, Jason, he called me. But you talked to him. For 2 minutes. Just long enough to tell him to leave us alone. Why didn't you tell me? She looked down at her hands. Because I knew you'd react like this. I knew you'd think I was encouraging him. Weren't you? No. I hung up on him. After 2 minutes of conversation. After 2 minutes of me telling him to stop calling. I walked into the living room and sat down heavily on the couch. Laura followed, perching on the edge of the coffee table so she was facing me. Jason, please. You have to believe me. I don't want him. I want this. I want us. Do you? Because he's not wrong about the rest of it. I do check your phone. I do ask questions about everything. I do watch you like I'm waiting for you to screw up again. I understand why you do that. Do you? Or do you hate it? She was quiet for a long moment. Sometimes I hate it, she said finally. Sometimes it feels like punishment that's never going to end, but I understand why you need to do it. That's not sustainable, Laura. I can't spend the rest of my life being your warden, and you can't spend the rest of your life being my prisoner. So what do we do? I looked at her, really looked at her, and tried to see past my anger and hurt and suspicion to the woman I'd married 12 years ago. She was still there, I thought. Damaged, maybe. Changed, definitely. But still there. We make a choice, I said finally. Both of us. We decide if we want to be married to each other or if we want to be married to the ghosts of who we used to be. I want to be married to you. Even if it means earning back trust instead of just being given it? Yes. Even if it means being patient while I figure out how to stop being angry? Yes. Even if it means Scott Williams keeps calling and showing up and trying to convince you that you're making a mistake? Especially then. Her voice was stronger now, more certain. Jason, I need you to understand something. What I had with Scott wasn't real. It was nostalgia and fantasy and midlife crisis wrapped up in a pretty package. But this, what we have, what we built, this is real. The good parts and the bad parts and the boring parts and the hard parts. It's all real. And you want the real thing? I want the real thing. I reached for her hand, and for the first time in months, she didn't feel like a stranger. Okay, I said, let's try the real thing. That night, we made love for the first time since she'd come home. It wasn't passionate or desperate or movie perfect. It was careful and tentative and a little awkward, like we were learning each other all over again. But it was real. And for the first time since this whole nightmare had started, real felt like enough. 2 weeks later, Scott Williams was arrested for stalking after he showed up at Laura's new office and refused to leave when security asked him to. Laura pressed charges. He was sentenced to 6 months in jail and a restraining order that would keep him away from our family for the next 5 years. We never heard from him again. Laura and I stayed in counseling for 2 more years. We had good days and bad days, setbacks and breakthroughs, moments of doubt and moments of certainty. Slowly, carefully, we rebuilt something that was stronger than what we'd had before because it was based on truth instead of assumptions. The girls grew up knowing that sometimes people make mistakes, sometimes those mistakes have consequences, and sometimes, if everyone is willing to do the work, families can heal from even the worst betrayals. 5 years later, Laura and I renewed our vows in a small ceremony in our backyard, surrounded by family and friends who had watched us fall apart and put ourselves back together. Beth and Janie were our witnesses, old enough now to understand what they were witnessing and why it mattered. In his speech at the reception, my brother-in-law joked that we were the only couple he knew who had to get divorced to save their marriage. We never actually got divorced, but I understood what he meant. We had to let the marriage we'd had die so that a new, better marriage could take its place. Scott Williams sent a card to our house on the day of the ceremony. Laura brought it to me unopened, and we threw it away without reading it. Some ghosts don't deserve acknowledgement. That night, after the guests had gone home and the girls were asleep, Laura and I sat on our back porch drinking wine and talking about the future. Our real future, built on real trust and real love and real commitment to doing the work that marriage requires. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I'd made different choices? She asked. Sometimes, do you? Sometimes. But then I look at what we have now, what we built together after everything fell apart, and I think we ended up exactly where we were supposed to be. I thought about Scott Williams, probably alone somewhere, still believing that what he and Laura had shared was real love instead of mutual self-destruction. I thought about the man I'd been before all this happened, trusting and complacent and taking my family for granted. I thought about the woman Laura had been, restless and dishonest and willing to risk everything for a fantasy. Those people were gone now, replaced by people who knew how much work love required and were willing to do that work every single day. Yeah, I said, taking her hand. I think we did.